At my own wedding weekend, my parents texted a photo from my sister's engagement party, smiling under golden balloons that said Forever, Olivia, and Mason. No one from my family showed up. Not my mom, not my dad, not even my brother. They said, family can't be in two places at once. I said, that's fine. What they didn't know was that I wasn't standing in some rented ballroom. I was standing barefoot by the lake beside the woman I loved on property they didn't even know I owned. Before I continue, tell me where you're watching from. And hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by family. The kind of betrayal that doesn't scream, it smiles. Because what happened next wasn't just about a canceled wedding invitation. It was about years of quiet debts, hidden favors, and one final reckoning I never saw coming. I grew up in a house that looked perfect from the street white siding, trimmed hedges, and a porch swing that creaked like it was telling secrets. Inside, the air was thick with unsaid things. My mom, Carol, ran the house like a company. My dad, Robert, was the quiet VP who signed off on everything she wanted. I was the accountant before I even learned what taxes were. When I was 8, I learned what favoritism sounded like. It was my mother's voice, soft and proud. Be careful with your dress, Olivia. You're my little princess. I was in the corner, taping my science project together, cardboard volcano, baking soda, vinegar. She never looked my way. When it erupted too early and spilled on the floor, she sighed like I'd wasted her time. You always make such a mess, Ethan. At dinner that night, she gave Olivia the biggest slice of chocolate cake. I got the edge piece, the one no one wanted. My father laughed it off. You know your sister's got a sweet tooth. I smiled, but it tasted like something was burning. I didn't know it back then, but that tiny slice would set the template for my whole life. By middle school, I'd learned how to disappear. Mom was busy dressing Olivia for recitals. Dad was helping Dylan with Little League, and I was the one making sure the electric bill didn't get shut off literally. I found the overdue notice on the counter one morning and used my allowance to cover part of it. When my mom realized, she patted my shoulder. Responsible, just like your father. But I saw Dad's eyes flicker. He didn't like being compared. I should have known then that being the reliable one wasn't praise. It was a job description. High school made it worse. Olivia got a car for her 16th birthday, a used convertible wrapped in a red bow. I got a calculator and a speech about saving for the future. Dylan wrecked his bike. I paid half to fix it with money from my part-time grocery job. When I mentioned college, Mom said, "We'll see what we can do," in that tone that already meant no. So I made it happen myself. I worked every summer, every weekend. I took scholarships, tutoring gigs, anything that bought me distance. When I graduated, they came to the ceremony late, Mom in sunglasses, saying traffic was terrible. She took more pictures of Olivia in her floral dress than of me in my cap and gown. Still, I told myself it was fine. That's what I always did. College was the first time I felt air that wasn't shared with my family's expectations. I studied finance because numbers were clean. They didn't play favorites. I loved the order of it, how everything balanced if you worked long enough. But even there, the calls kept coming. Ethan, your brother's tuition payment is short. Can you cover it until next month? Ethan, your sister's rent got messed up. She's panicking. I'd send the money and tell myself I was keeping the peace. One Christmas, I came home with a small box, a gold bracelet for Mom. Something nice for once. Under the tree, the tags all read to Olivia and to Dylan. None said to Ethan. When Mom opened my gift, she smiled politely and said, "You shouldn't have spent your money." I looked around at the wrapping paper chaos, the laughter that somehow didn't include me, and felt that old burn again. I swallowed it, but it carved deeper than I thought. The years blurred into bank statements and quiet sacrifices. When I got my first real job at the firm, I called home to tell them. Dad said, "That's great, son." Then added, "Your sister's having car trouble again. You think you could?" That pause was my entire childhood condensed into one beat. I didn't know it then, but this pattern, their emergencies. My wallet would follow me like a shadow. And one day, it would finally turn into fire. After college, I moved to Chicago with 2 suitcases, a cheap suit, and a promise to myself I would build a life no one could take credit for. My first job was at a mid-tier bank. Long hours and cold lighting. But I liked it. Numbers were predictable, people weren't. Within a year, I was promoted. Within 3, I had a condo, a decent savings account, and a silence that felt earned. Then, the call started again. "Hey champ," Dad said once, voice too casual. "We're looking at refinancing the house. You mind reviewing the paperwork?" Translation: "We need you to sign something." I did. Then came: "Olivia's thinking about starting her own boutique. She just needs a small loan to get things going." I told them I couldn't. Mom sighed like I just confessed to a crime. "You've always been so practical, Ethan. That's what makes you so blessed. Not everyone has your stability. Family helps family." That phrase, family helps, family became the password to every withdrawal from my life. When Olivia's boyfriend Mason proposed, Mom threw a dinner that looked like a Hallmark movie. Candles, champagne, and compliments that made my teeth hurt. "She's finally found her match," Mom gushed, squeezing Mason's arm. Then, without missing a beat, "Ethan, you'll help with the engagement costs, right? It's tradition." I stared at my steak, rare and cooling. "What tradition?" "The one where the family supports each other," she said, her smile too smooth. I wanted to laugh. Instead, I said, "We'll see." But "we'll see" in my family meant, "You'll do it." The next month, Olivia's engagement photos were everywhere on social media. The credits listed Carter and Sons Photography, except there was no such company. I recognized the receipt when it hit my email. They'd used my card for the deposit. Mom called it a mix-up. "I'll pay you back," Olivia promised, her voice sugar-sweet. She never did. Still, I stayed quiet. I told myself peace was worth more than pride. Nora, my girlfriend at the time, disagreed. "They don't respect you, Ethan," she said one night as we ate takeout in my spotless kitchen. "They use you because you make it easy." She wasn't wrong, but admitting it felt like betraying the only family I had. Then came the baby shower incident, Olivia's, of course. She wanted custom flower walls, monogrammed favors, a photographer. Mom texted me a spreadsheet like it was an invoice. When I didn't respond, she called. "Don't be petty. You make 6 figures. This is nothing for you." I hung up before I said something I'd regret. But the next morning, I checked my credit report out of habit and froze. A new credit application had appeared under my name. The contact email? Mason's. The bank flagged it as fraud. I flagged it as the end. That weekend, I drove to my parents' house, hands tight on the wheel. The kitchen smelled like lemons and denial. Mom was arranging flowers. Dad was reading the paper. Olivia waddled in, pregnant and glowing with entitlement. "If you're not bringing the mimosa bar," she said, "at least don't kill the vibe." Something inside me cracked. I set a folder on the counter: receipts, Venmo transfers, wire confirmations, 7 years of helping. "This," I said, "is everything I've paid for in this family. Every bill, every favor, every time you said just this once." Dad's paper lowered. Mom's smile didn't. "Ethan, don't be dramatic." "I'm done," I said. "No more loans. No more gifts. No more lies." Olivia scoffed. "Wow, guess money really changes people." "Yeah," I said quietly. "It finally changed me." I walked out to the sound of ribbon cutting in silence. That was the last time I visited their house before the wedding. A week later, Mom called again. "Your sister's engagement party is the same weekend as your ceremony," she said, like reading the weather. "So you're not coming?" "It's family, Ethan. You understand." I did, just not the way she meant. I didn't know it then, but that call wasn't the end of the story. It was the start of my revenge. I tried to move on. I told myself a wedding didn't need family to make it real. But every time my phone buzzed, I felt that old reflex: the urge to answer, to fix, to explain. Old habits die like debts, slowly and with interest. Nora and I planned quietly. Simple, intimate, under 50 guests. Her parents were warm, uncomplicated people who asked about feelings, not finances. Every time I left their house, I felt lighter, and then my phone would light up with a message from Mom. "Have you picked colors yet?" She'd text. Before I could reply, another: "Olivia's using sage and gold. You might want to coordinate so it doesn't look awkward online." That's what she cared about: optics. Not presence, not emotion, just how things looked from the outside. One night, Nora caught me rereading the messages. Jaw tight. "You don't have to keep inviting them to hurt you," she said. "I know," I whispered. "But it's family." She smiled sadly. Then maybe family needs a new definition. I didn't answer, but the words stayed like a splinter. 2 weeks before the wedding, Mom called while I was at work. The city skyline glared behind the glass of my office. Her tone was calm, like she was discussing groceries. Your sister's engagement party will be that weekend. We'll be hosting everyone here. You understand, right? I waited for the part where she said we'll find a way. It never came. You're not coming? I asked. Ethan, family can't be in two places at once. Olivia's pregnant. She needs us more. She's 3 months along. It's still delicate, she said, voice sharp now. Don't be selfish. We'll send a gift. The line went quiet. I stared at the reflection in my office window, my own face, expressionless, like someone balancing an equation that didn't work anymore. When I told Nora, she didn't look surprised. I'm sorry, she said softly. I'm not, I replied, but my voice cracked halfway through. That night, the family group chat came alive. Olivia sent pastel invitations, golden hearts, balloons. Can't wait to celebrate love and new beginnings, she wrote. Dad reacted with confetti. Mom with hearts. No one mentioned my wedding. I typed nothing. Instead, I scrolled through old transactions. $3,200 for tuition. $1,800 for car repairs. $9,400 for Olivia's boutique that never opened. I realized my entire relationship with them was line items and balances. No hugs. Just history measured in payments. The next day, Mom left me a voicemail. Don't make this ugly, Ethan. You've always been the mature one. I laughed out loud in my car, that dry, broken kind of laugh that tastes like metal. I was always the mature one because someone had to be. At work, I snapped at a client for the first time in my career. Jenna, my coworker, lingered at my door afterward. Bad day? She asked. Family day, I said. She nodded like she understood. Maybe she did. That evening, I logged into my online banking to transfer the last vendor payment, the florist. A notification popped up. New authorized user request. My stomach dropped. I clicked details. The email listed under authorized user, Mason Harper, my sister's fiancé. The request had been flagged. Pending verification. I stared at it until the screen blurred. My pulse roared in my ears. I called the bank immediately. They froze the account, confirmed it hadn't gone through. Looks like someone tried to use your personal information, the rep said. I knew the voice behind that attempt. I called Olivia. She answered on speaker. Music thumped in the background. What? She said. You tried to add Mason to my credit card. It didn't even work. Chill, she said. Olivia. That's fraud. Oh my God, you're being dramatic again. It was just easier this way. Easier for who? She giggled. You've got money, Ethan. Stop acting broke. Something inside me snapped in half quietly. Not the kind of anger that explodes, the kind that hardens. I'm not your bank, I said. She scoffed. You wouldn't even be where you are without us. That line, their family myth, landed like acid. I hung up before I said something that would scorch everything. I didn't know it then, but that was the last time I'd hear her voice without wanting to leave the room. The next morning, I drove to my parents' house. I didn't plan it. I just got in the car, turned onto the old road I used to take to high school, and ended up there. The house looked smaller than I remembered, like the kind of place that shrinks when you finally stop fearing it. Mom opened the door wearing her hostess smile, the one she used when neighbors came over. Ethan, she said, surprised but not happy. If you came to apologize, I didn't. She froze, hand still on the door. Dad appeared behind her with a mug of coffee, eyes darting between us. The kitchen smelled like lemons and false peace. Olivia's voice came from inside, bright and lazy. Mom, where's the glue gun? Of course she was there. Of course. I stepped into the kitchen. The table was covered in pastel ribbons, candles, little jars that said, "Love is sweet." It was a factory of celebration for an event that had stolen my own. If you came to help, we're fine, Mom said, going back to tying ribbons. I'm not here to help. Then what? I put the folder on the counter. It landed with a sound that made everyone look up. What's that? Dad asked. Receipts, I said. 7 years worth. Mom frowned. Ethan, I kept track. Every dollar I gave. Every favor you said was temporary. I opened the folder. Inside, neat columns of printed transfers, notes, dates, and signatures. Tuition, rent, loans, repairs. That SUV you put under my name. The boutique deposit. Even the engagement photographer you said was a mix-up. Olivia laughed, nervous. You're seriously keeping score? I'm keeping records, I said. That's what adults do. Mom's tone sharpened. This is ridiculous. No. What's ridiculous is pretending love means debt. Dad set his mug down, slowly. Son, money isn't everything. You've treated it like it is, I said, and I've been your supply. Mom straightened, hands trembling slightly. You're making this ugly. It was already ugly, I said, calm. You just liked it better when I was quiet. Olivia rolled her eyes. So what? You're cutting us off now? On your wedding week? Yes. She snorted. Wow. Guess Nora's got you whipped. That hit harder than it should have. No, I said. She just reminds me I'm allowed to stop bleeding for people who call it love. For the first time, silence filled that house. The kind that buzzes in your ears. Mom's face softened, but it wasn't regret, it was strategy. You're punishing us because your sister's moment came first, she said. You've always been jealous, Ethan. Always needed control. I wanted respect, I said. There's a difference. Dad stepped forward. Be reasonable. Family doesn't commit fraud. I cut in. He blinked. Fraud? I turned to Olivia. Mason tried to add himself to my account. She smirked like it was a prank. Relax. It didn't go through. That's not the point. Then what is? That I'm done pretending any of this is normal. Mom picked up the folder with 2 fingers, like it was contaminated. Do you want a medal? No, I said. I want boundaries. Her voice rose. After all we've done for you. I laughed quietly. Exactly. I reached into my pocket and took out the spare house key I'd carried since college. I set it beside the folder. You don't get to use me anymore. Olivia scoffed. You think you're better than us now because you can afford a wedding by a lake or whatever? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Her guess was closer than she knew. Dad's jaw tightened. You'll regret this. No, I said softly. For the first time, I won't. I walked out, feeling their stares on my back. The sunlight outside was harsh, too bright for that moment, like even the day refused to mourn them. Driving home, my hands shook, not from guilt relief. Years of tension unspooled in my chest, replaced by something sharp and clean. Nora met me at the door. She didn't ask what happened. She just took the folder from my hand and set it down gently, like it was radioactive. You finally did it, she said. I finally did it. That night, we sat on the couch, the house quiet except for the hum of the fridge. My phone buzzed again, group chat lighting up. Olivia, baby shower is gonna be perfect. Mom, our little girl deserves the world. Dad, family first, always. I stared at it, then typed one message. Travel details were in the envelope I mailed 6 months ago. You can still come if you choose to. No one replied. 2 days later, Olivia posted her pastel mood boards with the caption, Real family shows up. Mom commented 3 hearts. Dad added a thumbs up. Nora saw it, looked at me, and asked quietly, What are you going to do? I smiled for the first time in weeks. Something they'll never expect. She raised an eyebrow. Revenge? I shook my head. Peace. But peace, I've learned, can look a lot like revenge when you finally stop apologizing for choosing it. The morning of our wedding, the lake looked like glass still, endless, reflecting a sky so clean it felt unreal. Mist rolled across the surface like smoke, and the air smelled of pine and salt. The cabin's wooden deck creaked under my feet as I stepped out barefoot, coffee steaming in my hand. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't thinking about who needed me. I was thinking about who I wanted beside me. Nora came out wrapped in a gray sweater, her hair pulled into a loose knot. You didn't sleep, she said, her voice half a smile. I didn't need to, I said. It feels like I've been asleep for years. The guests started arriving just before sunset. 20 people, friends, colleagues, her parents, Jenna from the office who'd helped us more than family ever did. No one asked about my side of the guest list. They already knew. We kept everything simple. Wooden chairs facing the water, strings of warm lights swaying between the trees, wildflowers in mason jars. When the music began soft, slow, Unpretentious, I saw Nora walk down the steps barefoot, dress brushing the boards, eyes steady on mine. For a moment, time folded in half. Every memory of being overlooked, dismissed, replaced, it all went quiet. When she reached me, I felt my pulse slow to match the rhythm of the lake. The officiant, her old mentor, smiled. "We gather not because of who couldn't be here," he said, "but because of who chose to be." We said our vows with sand between our toes. She promised peace. I promised honesty. We didn't mention forever, just effort. When the officiant pronounced us married, the guests clapped, and the sound echoed against the water like applause from the world itself. After dinner, Elise, our photographer friend, handed me her phone. "Look," she said. The pictures glowed in the dark. Nora laughing mid-sentence, the sun melting into the horizon. Me carrying her across the threshold, her hair catching light like fire. "You should post them," she said. I hesitated. "They'll see." "Good," she said. So we did. 3 photos. No captions. Just the lake, the light, the truth. At first, the silence was perfect. The fire crackled. Music played. Nora's head rested on my shoulder. Then my phone buzzed once, twice, then 20 times in a row. I ignored it. By dessert, the screen glowed red with notifications. Group chat exploding, voicemails stacking, messages from numbers I hadn't saved in years. I muted everything, but it kept vibrating like a heartbeat that wouldn't die. Elise came over, grinning nervously. "You might want to check this," she whispered, showing me her screen. Olivia's Instagram story. A zoomed-in screenshot of our photos. The caption read, "Where is this?" Followed by 10 question marks. Underneath, Mom's comment, "Is this a resort? Why didn't he tell us?" Dad's text came next. "Call me now." I didn't. Instead, I put my phone face down on the table and poured another glass of wine. Nora raised an eyebrow. "It's starting, isn't it?" "Oh, it's already started," I said. "I'm just not attending." The night stretched on, soft and golden. We danced barefoot on the deck, our laughter mixing with the sound of water against the shore. Every vibration from the phone on the table felt like an echo from a life I'd finally outgrown. At 11 p.m., curiosity got the better of me. I unlocked the phone. 1 missed calls. The voicemails played like a chorus of ghosts. "Mom first. You embarrassed us. People are asking where you got the money for this. Call me immediately." Dad next. "Son, we raised you better than this." Olivia's devastated. "You made your mother cry." Olivia, "Wow. So you've been living rich while we struggle? You're disgusting. Hope your lake keeps you warm." Each voice tried to pull me back into orbit. Guilt, shame, manipulation, all their favorite currencies. But I'd gone bankrupt in that economy. I texted the group chat one message. "I sent invitations with full details 6 months ago. You chose not to come. You also tried to access my accounts. That ends now. Don't contact me again until you can apologize without excuses." I hit send, turned off read receipts, and slid the phone back into the drawer. Nora came over, barefoot, dress hem brushing the floor. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "For once, I actually am." We stepped outside again. The moon hung low, the water black and infinite. She leaned against me. "You think they'll ever get it?" "No," I said, "but that's not my job anymore." For the first time in decades, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel responsible. I just felt done. The wind picked up, carrying the faint smell of pine and smoke. Somewhere inside, the phone buzzed again. I let it. The lake whispered against the rocks, and I listened to that instead, because that night, standing under the same stars that had watched me swallow disappointment my whole life, I finally learned silence could be louder than any speech. By morning, the storm had passed online and otherwise. The sky over the lake was so clear it hurt to look at. I brewed coffee, poured 2 mugs, and checked my phone only once. 90 unread messages. I didn't open a single one. Instead, I scrolled to the letter I'd written but never sent. The subject line said, "Boundaries." I drafted it weeks earlier, knowing this day would come. Now, I printed 4 copies. One for Mom, one for Dad, one for Olivia, one for Dylan. Each page began the same way. "I love you, but love isn't a credit line." I wrote that from now on, I wouldn't fund their emergencies, excuses, or image. Any attempt to use my accounts would be handled legally, not emotionally. I ended each letter with the same sentence. If you want a relationship, build it on respect, not receipts. I signed them, sealed them, and set them on the table beside our wedding rings, two symbols of choice instead of obligation. Nora came out, hair still damp from the shower. You're really doing it? Yeah, I said. I'm not fighting them anymore. I'm auditing the damage and closing the account. She smiled softly. That's your revenge, isn't it? Not revenge, I said, staring out at the lake. Accountability. The phone buzzed again. Dad this time. Then Mom. Then Olivia. I let it ring until it stopped. By noon, I dropped the letters in the mailbox down the dirt road. The wind carried the scent of cedar, sharp and clean. As I turned back toward the cabin, I felt something shift, not anger, not sadness, just release. People think revenge means burning bridges. They never talk about the peace that comes when you simply stop building new ones. They thought they taught me how to provide. What they really taught me was how to let go. And if they ever decide to reach out again, they'll find that I'm still here, steady, calm, and finally debt-free. Because the only balance that matters now is the one I keep within myself. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, hit like and subscribe. Because sometimes the hardest thing you'll ever do is stop rescuing people who drown you to stay afloat. This story isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming your worth, dollar by dollar, boundary by boundary, until peace feels louder than guilt. And if someone ever calls you selfish for protecting your sanity, remember, they only say that when your silence stops paying their bills. Stick around, because this story isn't over. The next chapter starts when you finally say, no more.